How are you?
Good morning, Clay. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm so excited to have you here this morning on Coffee with Democrats in Arkansas. Eli Clardy is from Mulberry, Arkansas. 10 years ago, at the age of 15, he started working in national, state, and local politics, including 4 presidential campaigns and on the ground in the Iowa caucuses for 2 of them. Most recently, Eli has served as the Crawford County CAPES director and the Young Democrats of Arkansas labor chairman for Districts 3 and 4. Currently, Eli works as a community organizer and gay rights activist in the River Valley. In the wake of historic discrimination, Eli's undeniable passions and the focus of his activism are currently focused on protecting and advancing the rights of LGBTQ plus Arkansans, as well as turning our state blue. Welcome again. Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you for
much.
having me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. I got a chance to talk with you last week, and I absolutely loved our conversation. I had the biggest smile the entire time we were talking, and then after we got off the phone, I messaged my friends, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys have got to meet Eli. He's so awesome." I'm so
Oh,
excited to have you here and to let everybody hear about all of the work that you've been doing in Arkansas.
well, I am so excited to tell them we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up in our area.
We do, we do. I do want to give everybody a chance to get to know you. So let's start with some basics. Where
Sure.
did you grow up? I know that in your bio we talked about you being from
Oh,
Milwaukee.
oh goodness. Well, I was born in Springdale and lived there the first few years of my life, but my family is from Mulberry, Arkansas, and we go about 4 generations back there. And I moved there when I was about 10, and I've been here ever since. And Mulberry's always been my home. Growing up, it's Mulberry, but it was a lot more like Mayberry. It gives you that very Andy Griffith feel, pies in the windowsill, white picket fences, that sort of thing. So it's a beautiful and real wholesome place to grow up.
Oh, it sounds awesome. I've never been, but you sell it so well. So I'm
Good.
definitely
They
going
should
to
they
visit.
should put me on the tourism department
They
then if I
should.
get
They
that good.
really should.
For those
They
who don't
really
know,
should.
it's about probably 30 minutes towards Little Rock from Fort Smith. It's in the River Valley. If you know where Alma is, it's about 15 minutes from Alma, between there and
Okay.
Ozark.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the sign when I've driven up that way, but
A
I'm
lot of people have
definitely,
gone through that. They can
yeah.
usually place that they've seen a sign or two.
Well, we're definitely have to check it out next time I'm up there.
Yeah, I'll show you around.
Because yes, I would love that. So tell us a little bit about your hobbies. What do you do for fun, Eli?
What do I do for fun? Well, politics is the funnest thing that I do in my life. I know it's so much fun, so much fun.
It
No, it is a
is.
lot of fun, but it has its moments as well. Really, in my free time, uh, well, I play Dungeons and Dragons every Sunday with my father, and we've been doing that about the past 3, 4 years now. And we don't make every Sunday, but we try to make as many Sundays as we can. And boy, we've run through, I can't even tell you how many games at this point, but that's just such a good refresher to get at the end of the week and kind of clear all the gunk out of your brain. So I love doing that. I love to catch a movie in my downtime. I'm a big horror movie fan. I haven't seen Barbie yet. I
I
haven't
haven't
seen
either.
Oppenheimer, so I haven't Barbieheimered, and I'm very upset about it. So I kind of know how at least one of them ends, so you don't have to worry about
Right.
spoilers. But still excited to see them. So that's a lot of what I do in my free time, and then I'm also a godfather to my sister's
Oh,
beautiful 3 cats, and
I love
they
it.
are missing me terribly right now, and they so wish they could be here to be knocking over the iPad for the
Oh, I
duration.
bet.
You know,
You'll
they
have to
live
bring them
life.
next time they can
Maybe,
sit on your
maybe.
shoulder, be
See
our
how
special
good they
guest,
are.
right? Um, so how did you get involved in politics? You had mentioned that, at 15, you started
Hmm.
and you've been involved since then, so for 10 years.
Yes.
What got you involved?
I would say I first started getting interested around the age of 13 is when I kind of started to notice politics in my world around me. And I started to kind of see how much it does affect you. And when I got into politics originally, it was very much because it seemed like this is how you made real change in your world. If you wanted change that you could hold in your hands, if you wanted to end wars, stop pandemics, save lives, make jobs, you go into politics. That's where that got done. And obviously, it's a bit more complex than that, but I had that very idealized view of politics as a young teenager, and that's really what motivated me to get into it, and still have no regrets about it for it, however it's turned out. I mean, because that bottom line is still true that if you want to help people, this is probably one of the best places you can be to do it is in
But
politics.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And to start at a young age, that's really awesome. I love seeing, we're seeing a lot of Gen Z, and I know you're part of
Yes.
Gen Z. We're seeing a lot of Gen Z get really involved, and
Hmm.
it for me, an elder millennial, and it motivates me to
Yes.
do more and to be more involved because I see the younger generation really putting their all a lot of
Mhm.
times into it. And, you know, for me, that's like, I've got to get up there too. I've got to do it too.
Right.
We're all working towards that same goal. And I love when you said, one of your hobbies is politics. My mom, she always makes fun of me. She's always like, you need more hobbies than that. Like, that's not a hobby. I'm like, but it is. Like, that's
It
all
is
I talk
though. I
about.
mean, there's so many people I know that like that's where their friends are at, and that's how
Right.
they socialize. And it really can be a very strong community for people who are lonely and for people who need a purpose and need something to do. I'm telling you, go check out your local Democratic Party headquarters. They will be happy to put you to work, and they'll be happy to be very good friends with you. I can promise you that.
Right. I mean, it is like you're very much like what just in the conversations that we've had, I can tell you are very much a person that wants to help and wants to help your community and to do better for your community and to turn that into a hobby, it's something that's fulfilling, but you also make friends along the way
Right.
and then it's a fun thing that you do, on a Saturday. You guys, come up with a campaign. We're going to go and help this community. We need to clean up trash and do a trash pickup or something like that. That's not
Oh yeah.
feasible
I'm
for
like,
someone
let's hit
to go.
some doors for 2 hours, I mean, let's go make some
Right.
calls. It's just such an
Exactly.
easy thing, you can do, especially during an election year.
Exactly.
And it's
But
fun, if I may say.
yeah,
It really is fun getting everyone together and piling into a truck and going door to door like that. It can be a lot of fun.
it can be. And then it gives you a chance to get to know your neighbors. It gives you a
Yes.
reason to go to a neighborhood that you otherwise wouldn't go to and go talk
Oh yeah.
to people that you otherwise wouldn't talk to.
Uh-huh. And you have to be making those connections, especially as a candidate, to inform your perspective and shift your perspective. Your perspective, I feel, should always be shifting in politics based upon the information you're bringing in from your community, because we're politicians are really just vessels. They're supposed to be channels for how the community feels. You're really not there to implement your own agenda so much as the will of the people.
Right. And you've knocked on a lot of doors and talked to a lot of people. So just, talking to you, probably have a really, really good sense of what your community needs and wants.
I like to think so, and funnily enough, you hear a lot of the same things as you go from Iowa to Georgia to Arkansas. There's a lot of those same ringers. At the end of the day, people care about secure jobs. They care about education for their children. They care about affordable health care. They care about affordable housing. These are things that are going to resonate all across the nation, in every rural community. And it's not the problems we have here in Arkansas are not just exclusive to Arkansas. We have our unique problems, but we have things that the solutions have been found. We just have to implement them here.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, working on these different campaigns, and you've traveled to different states and talked to people in different states all over. Um, what are some of the most memorable experiences that you've had?
Oh goodness, that is a good question. Uh, well, one of the things we do when we do Iowa, I've gotten to do two of the caucuses now for 2020 and for 2016. And I make it a priority, whichever campaign I'm working on, I go ahead and see every candidate while I'm there, just because why are you going to be in Des Moines and not go see everybody that you can go to see? So we always try and do that. And then in 2020, that's probably the most serious I ever got to work in the Iowa caucuses. I was on the Bernie Sanders campaign on the ground for up until the day of the vote, which I think was February 1st. And of course, they had the infamous blackout that night as well, where the voting went haywire and the caucuses went haywire. And that was very memorable. But if I had to home in on one thing that really sticks out with me from my time uh, on the campaign trail, on all these campaign trails, it's there was a time I met a doctor from Texas, and I'm remiss I don't remember his name, but his story is always very much stuck with me. He was a doctor from Texas, and he had come up to Des Moines to canvass with the Sanders campaign. And he told a story about how he was uninsured, even though he was a doctor, and his wife was uninsured. And he was diagnosed with a late stage of cancer. He slipped into a coma. They only had they were only able to treat him if they sold everything, the house, everything. And his wife was faced with this monumental decision. And in the course of this, found out she too had a late stage cancer.
Uh,
And she made the decision while he was in his coma to pay for his treatment. And when he came out of his coma, she had passed away. And this had all happened unbeknownst to him while he was dealing with his illness. I don't think you could have heard a pin drop in that room when he told his testimony. And there won't be a single day that I don't go out and advocate for universal health care because of that man. Because the stories like that exist across this country. There's thousands of them, there's tens of thousands of them. And it's like he told us, I'm a doctor and I wasn't able to get insured. That should tell you right there, this isn't a question of money or people not being smart enough to find it. I am in the system. I deal with it every day. I was not able. And that just gives me cold chills just even anytime I think back to it. Just powerful story.
yeah. Wow, I've got chilled. Wow.
That's how real this is for so many people. And it's easy to lose how real that this fight really is and what it means to people till you hear it put like that.
It really is. I think, a lot of us, we care about our neighbors, our friends, we care about other people and humanity, but we have so much going on in our day-to-day lives, and it's so easy to either just desensitize ourselves to these
Mhm.
issues that are going on, or just they don't come across our minds. But to hear that, I've always been a very strong advocate for Medicare for all, and
Right.
I believe that healthcare is a human right.
Healthcare,
Deep
healthcare is a
down,
fundamental human right. And if you were to ask me, I think it's guaranteed in our Constitution. I think when the Constitution says you have a right to life, that is a right to health care. You have a right to live that life. I mean, is it a right to a good quality of life or isn't it? That, in my view, that it is a right to a good quality of life, and healthcare is a fundamental human right. Right now, we give healthcare to a very privileged few, and we do subsidize it and we do pay for it. And there is no reason that we cannot expand that and cover every citizen in this country the way that almost every other wealthy, civilized nation in this world takes care of every citizen and provides them health care. They do it in Europe,
Absolutely.
they do it in Australia, they do it all over the world seamlessly. We're the one place that hasn't figured it out.
My friends and I were talking about disability and homelessness and
Hmm.
the amount of people that don't have health care. I want to say it was 44,000 people per year in America die due to lack of health care.
Right, right.
And that number, like I said, I don't have the number right in front of me. That might be wrong, but it was thousands of people.
Right.
And when you compare it to how many people are in the country, not so much, but one is too much.
Right.
Two.
And there's so many silent deaths as well when we're talking about something in terms of healthcare as well. Just think alone how many in the pandemic silently slipped by. Uh, Something that doesn't get talked about a lot from that is just how many people died from suicide from the pandemic, because the isolationism and the dynamics of the pandemic, people who dealt with depression and struggled with that already, it was hell for them. It was, and for a lot of them, it was sadly death. It really was. And those don't get added to COVID statistics. We don't talk about those like they're COVID deaths, but they're pandemic related deaths. Uh, I I know a sad few people, who I believe would be here today if we did not go through that pandemic and they didn't have COVID. They sadly passed away through other means.
That that brings up another good point, though. Mental health care
Yes,
in our country. I would absolutely love to see universal health care, and that include mental health care.
absolutely,
I feel that
absolutely.
we've not really grasped that enough, but also here in Arkansas, I feel like we could do a lot more
We
as far
can,
as mental health care.
and we need to do a lot more because healthcare is another one of those things where it is a big problem, but it's an even bigger problem the more you move into the rural areas of our state. The more rural you get, the less access you have to treatment, the more isolated you are, which feeds into depression, feeds into anxiety, less socialization. So, for a state like ours that is so rural, mental health should be a top priority of our government. And it's sad we see Republicans talk a lot about during a shooting, that they want to get on mental health care. And then the cameras move away, and you never really see anything to fund a new bill funding mental health care ever coming out or expanding it or anything to that effect. It's very unfortunate the way that it has really been put to the side as an issue when I really think it's probably one of the most important and pressing issues facing our entire country. And there shouldn't be any healthcare plan that doesn't include mental or dental, because last I checked, your teeth and your brain are in your face, a part of you. So, yeah, it should probably be treating those things. Any plan should cover those things. And eye care. Those things
Yeah,
all should be covered under any healthcare plan. It is insane that we don't do that. It is insane that we have the money to and we have the infrastructure to, and it's a silent killer is what it is. And it needs to be made a priority. needs to be made a priority in this country.
You told that story about that gentleman and what he went through, and I think, I know personally, and I think anybody that's listening knows of an instance where someone's life was just completely
Yeah.
changed, shattered,
Hmm.
broken because of lack of healthcare.
Yeah.
And that is something that we absolutely should be making more of a priority for. I'm really glad
Yeah.
that thank you for sharing that
Well,
story, but
yeah.
I think that we need to talk about this more.
I agree because for so many families, this is the whole ball game. This is what they are invested in this fight for. They have a loved one, they have a grandparent, they have a child who they had to say goodbye to because of for-profit healthcare. And we can make that a thing of the past. It's insurance companies, it's pharmaceutical companies, it's big money that keeps us from being able to do that. We have to get money out of politics. We have to elect people who will fight for universal health care. And we have to change the debate on it. We have to let people understand this is not Karl Marx, Soviet Union era, some crazy thing. Sweden and Canada have universal health care. They're democratic societies. So, can we all please just calm down with the buzzwords and do what we need to do to help the American people, and especially the people of Arkansas, because healthcare is rough in our state. As bad as it is across the state, it is even worse in the natural state.
It is, and I have actually read an article um, from the Atlantic. It was in the Atlantic, and it was from a woman, written by a woman from Arkansas. I'm not sure if she still resides in Arkansas. She's from Arkansas, and she talked about addictions and
Yes,
how that plays a part, and it does. I see
yes,
that in my area. I mean, yes, it's nationwide. It's
right.
but in rural areas, you have again that isolation, and
Mhm.
when you don't have those services and when you don't have a state that's prioritizing
Right.
mental health care, they're not prioritizing addiction services either.
In a lot of cases, it's simply people are looking for relief. They're looking for an escape from their situation. And these people, God, my heart goes out to them, and they need to be treated with so much more compassion than our government does and our politicians talk about them, because there's sick people as sick as anyone with a broken arm. And they deserve only our complete compassion. And the fact that we don't have the services necessary in our state to help them, I think it's so sad. Uh, my heart really goes out to them, and that needs to change.
It does. And I really, in having these conversations, I feel like it will. Um,
Yes.
I know we shouldn't go off a feeling, but just talking with so many people around Arkansas, like yourself, and hearing what you're saying,
Right.
we're a lot of us are on that same page. We all feel the
Yeah.
same. It's just getting those people in power to listen
Hmm.
and to take notice and to actually do the work that they were elected to do.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. I'm sure you've heard it say before. Arkansas isn't necessarily a red state as much as it's a non-voting state. Now, there's some
Absolutely.
truth in a bit of both of that, but essentially, these policies are very broadly popular with the actual electorate. I don't think they actually realize how far the viewpoints of the people that sit in those offices are from the things they actually personally believe. Like here in our county, funding libraries is popular, defunding libraries is not popular, book bans are unpopular. And yet, look that's what our county government is currently instituting here in Crawford County. And those are not popular issues whatsoever. That's anti-education, anti-libraries, anti-our teachers, and terrible for our kids.
Absolutely. There, every time this is brought up, I'm still always at a loss for words. How are we banning books? Like, how is that where we're at?
Right,
You know,
right,
um, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that here in the United States of America, we would have this huge focus and campaign against books
right.
and banning books and defunding libraries,
Mhm.
public libraries.
It's it's as sad as it is scary. It is what it is, and there's many reasons, for this. Obviously, the Republican Party has a vested interest in limiting access to education and to higher education. And
Absolutely.
they have made a lot of efforts to keep people, to demonize higher education, to keep people from seeking out education, to put people in Arkansas into the workforce starting at 10 years old. And some of the ways, even in this new Learns Act, that they have made that worse is one of the new provisions in the Learns Act, Sarah Huckabee's education plan, is that private school students uh, have to do 0 hours of community service to graduate. Public school students have to do 75 hours, zero for private, 75 hours for public school students. Now, imagine how hard that is for someone who lives in a rural area to consistently get out. And what if they're having to work to help pay bills at home at the same time? That's such a that is an unfair burden to put on a public school student just for the fact they don't have the money to go to private school. It's totally antithetical to what we should be championing in education, which is everyone the same education. Everyone learns the same thing. Same education for poor, white, black, rich, anyone. Everyone gets the same education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to bring that back, I love the idea of community service and volunteer work. I don't love the idea of making it mandatory because
Right.
it's not feasible for every family.
Oh,
So you do
exactly.
have children that will, not be able to, but I see the benefits of it, but there are so many, and I think that pretty much goes to this whole entire Learns Act. There's so much of it that just doesn't work for
Right.
the everyday Arkansan.
Exactly. Exactly.
Are the parents supposed to take off of work to go change
Hmm.
after school?
Well,
There's so much there.
the bottom line is Arkansans do not truly support private school students getting to abide by different rules than public school students. That it should be equal if private schools are going to take money out of the public school fund,
Absolutely.
then they should have to abide by certain regulations. For instance, a lot of people talk about the teacher pay raises. Well, those don't apply to the private schools. They can pay teachers what they want. The private schools are under no obligation to bus your students, which again, we want to talk about the rural communities. Bus isn't coming out to Gintown Road and Mountain View and those other places. It's not going to make it up if your child has to go to a private school. So there's a lot wrong with it. And you're right, it does not serve the average Arkansan who is focused on getting to work, focused on getting their kid a good education. It completely flies in the face of that. That's probably a big reason why a bunch of the support we saw come out against it during the time that we had with CAPES was from teachers and former educators. They probably made up, I want to say, half of our signatures that we got in Crawford County, which is amazing, and we thank them so much for it because we know the pressure they're under from the state government and everything. And the ones that came out, we thank them so much because they really led the way on this thing.
Yeah, I was paying attention to social media and seeing the posts from all sorts of people from in Arkansas, and I absolutely loved seeing the teachers.
Hmm.
This doesn't this affects them, but they know firsthand how
Right.
this is going to work in the classroom. And
Exactly.
we are entrusting our teachers. A few years ago, we were singing their praises, and we still are, but
Yes.
everybody was singing their praises, and now all of a sudden they're being demonized. And
All of a sudden, they're indoctrinating their
right,
students. They're, I don't know, slipping Little Women into their backpack before they go home. Who knows what they're doing? All I can tell you is all my teachers were straight, and I have two straight parents, and my librarian was straight, and it didn't make one lick of difference how I turned out in the end. So, this idea that they can just indoctrinate our children, it's just an old myth that's been around forever. It plays into gay people are pedophiles, they're pornographers, they're these insidious, sexual, inherently sexual people that you have to keep your kids away from. If Bobby reads the book with two daddies, oh God, who knows what's going to happen. But most actual people, even in Arkansas, understand that it is 2023 and the world has evolved. And not everyone, admittedly, shares that viewpoint in our state, but more people do than the people in power realize. And it would be very scary for them to realize that very soon because they might be out of a job if they realize it too late. Because uh, gay people get together and they vote, if women get together and they vote, if black people in this state get together and they vote, they'll build a rainbow coalition that'll kick their butts straight out of office. And there's a storm coming. There is a storm coming. And
I love it.
Capes was just kind of the first little lightning bolt.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Capes started the movement here.
Yes.
It really did.
There
So
was a lot of people that didn't quite have hope until Capes came through. And
yeah,
it's been amazing the response.
to see the response, that was inspiring to see so
Hmm.
many people. And I have to say, I got calls from family friends who are, I don't know now, but I know at the time were Republicans,
Yes.
and they were pissed, like livid
Oh,
about
yes.
the Learns Act. And for me, it was like, good, good. Like, I'm so glad that you're seeing this. Now let's do something. And they
Exactly.
got involved with capes. And to see that, that was for me really inspiring. That I hate that it took this, but I'm glad it was something.
Yes. There was, and I got to give all the credit to Steve Grapp and all the amazing people that worked so hard to get that up and running in half the time period because of course the attorney general did wait about as long as he could almost to approve the petition, gave us half the time, and still they only fell 900 short with half the time to go, which is, it's a real blow to the gut, but just on its numbers it shows you how strong this state is hungering for change, hungering for real progressive change. And it's why I don't think we have to run away from these issues. I just think we have to get better about how we market them to Republicans, and we could bring a lot of them back in. Learns, for example, that's a big government takeover of education. Do you really want government coming in and telling you where your taxpayer money has to go to a religious institution that you don't disagree with? That's not very conservative. The idea of a book ban, that's not very conservative. The idea that government would come in between your right as a parent to dictate what your child looks at and doesn't look at, that should be something you're completely against. You should be against doctors coming in between, excuse me, government coming in between you and your doctor deciding what's best for your kid, whether he or she should get gender affirming care or not. That shouldn't be the government's decision. All of those things are completely antithetical to what conservatism is supposed to be about. And yet, it's all the conservatives that are pulling for it. So I think maybe a lot of the blinders would come off if we could just market these issues in a way that hits their ears a bit better.
Absolutely. It almost seems like we've become the conservatives. Um, you know,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
uh, you brought up a really great point. Parents' rights. I've heard that so much, but really, I should have the choice whether my children read a book or don't read a book. Go
Exactly. Exactly.
to this doctor or
There's
don't go to that doctor. Have this procedure done. That's between.
and my parents would have trusted me to go into the library at 5 or 8 or whenever and pick whatever book I wanted to pick. There's not the things that they're saying in the library,
Absolutely.
pornography and all these other ridiculous things. Those are bylines that extremist groups like the River Valley Elders have come up with to try and push this agenda. It's simply not true. The things that they are really mad about are little picture books that show things like glimpses of a kid with two dads and things like that. Understand that they are literally just mad at any piece of literature that shows queer people existing. And beyond removing that, you will never get some of these people to agree with you. Some people you cannot find consensus with, and some people are just wrong. And that's the way it is. And people that want to fall on their sword, uh, going after LGBTQ rights, as far as I'm concerned, they're more than welcome to do it because we're not going to bargain with our rights. We're not going to compromise our rights. There are some things that we have to stand on the principles of. And the rights of gay and trans people in Arkansas has got to be something that every Democratic politician comes out and says they're willing to fight for emphatically.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Like there's absolutely no question about it. If we aren't willing to stand up against this bigotry and this hate
Yes.
and discrimination and targeted attacks towards a
Yeah.
community, what are we about for one? But
Uh-huh.
also, it's going to be someone else next. They're not going to just stop.
That's right. They will never stop at them. It's always there's that beautiful at first they came poem. And I think about it all the time in the context of what's going on in Arkansas because and God, my heart really goes out to everything our trans community in Arkansas has to put up with because I'm a gay man and even still just seeing what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, I I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I mean, just to have random grown men behave in such adolescent ways, like the state senator who asked, "Do you have a penis?" At in the middle of a committee hearing. It's some of the most just bigoted and grotesque stuff you'll ever hear out of the mouths of grown adults. So we have to protect that community first. They're our front line of defense, and as soon as it's eroded, they will start on gay people. And it affects everyone. Gay women. Yeah, I mean, the intersectionality that exists with gay black men and gay black women. It affects everyone harder. If we don't stand for that community first, it's going to be a tidal wave of injustice that comes down on all of us. And I don't think we're doing enough right now to stand up for the trans community in the face of such historic discrimination. I mean, literally, the most trans state in the nation with the most regressive laws ever put on the books for transgender Americans. Our Democratic Party, should be leading the charge every day. Because if the Democratic Party isn't willing to protect the most vulnerable people in the state, uh, what's their point for being here? Well, that should be the whole enchilada.
Absolutely.
Well, it's very draining. It's just it really affects you emotionally just to know what these people are going through, what these kids are going through, and the fact that you wish that God that there were more people in their corner going to bat for them, because it's so sad. I go to the library meetings and everything, and it's how many more times are gay and trans people going to have to be the ones to put themselves on the front lines for their rights, because no one else is stepping up, to fall on that, to take that bullet for them. It's always going to be them first. And God love them. I have to mention the drag queens too, who have been amazing throughout this. Drag queens are really the Marines of the gay movement. They're the first ones in and they're the last ones out. And they are the most visible in our state, and they're some of the most loudest supporters in this state. And we love our drag queens in the state of Arkansas. We really do. And I want to just send them a ton of love if I can.
I love it. I love it. And you're absolutely right. Just watching what happened the last session over spring, and seeing the attacks, and seeing everybody at the courthouse. I cannot imagine what it must feel like every day, all day, to have your existence questioned and threatened, and all of the horrible things that we have seen and heard come out of the mouths. Our governor and her koozies.
Oh my goodness. I remember that. Yes.
It
Raising money off of the hate. That's about
exactly.
as low as it gets.
It really is. It really is. Like, did not like her, did not like her, lost complete, like, absolutely, like, no
Mm,
respect for that woman after that. Like,
no, she has very much revealed herself to be the person that we kind of always suspected that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was. Uh, Basically, from the outset of her leaving the Trump administration, where she disclosed to, I believe it was the Department of Justice, that she knowingly and willingly lied from the speaker's podium on behalf of Donald Trump on numerous occasions. I was done with her right then and there. I mean, how are you going to make that person your governor after they've admitted that they've perjured themselves practically? I mean, at
I,
the speaker's podium. I mean, that's disqualifying as far as I'm concerned. And we have a great, I don't know if he'll run again or not, but Dr. Jones was an amazing candidate to put out there. And he is one of the most interesting and exciting Democratic politicians I have seen come across in Arkansas politics in the whole time I have been active in it. He's got the stuff. That's about the best way I can say it. He's got the
yes,
stuff.
yes. I mean, every time she does something, I'm just reminded, like, we could have had Dr. Chris Jones,
I
you
know.
know, like, but
And from that first campaign ad where he had the stole and
yes,
he showed it, I have a lot of respect for somebody who can run a beautiful campaign. Just it really is. If you can't run a good campaign, you're probably not going to govern very well. Has always been kind of the way I look at it. So
right.
when somebody gets in the fight like that and really puts both feet down and says no and starts fighting, it gets me excited. It gets me fired up. And I was fired up for Chris Jones, and I know he plans on sticking around. So we are blessed to have an advocate like that in our corner. We really are.
We really are. And, you know, he has been so active since.
So active.
He has Vortex, and he's looking to find candidates for Arkansas,
Hmm.
and help them. I've heard him at several different events speaking, and being involved in his
Oh yeah.
community statewide as well. Um, so he might not have be in that governor's mansion, but he is doing the actual work. And
He
you,
very much feels like the people's governor
yeah,
almost, and just how
yeah,
much I mean, he didn't let it get him down at all. He immediately convened an audit to say, hey, where did we go wrong? What can we do better next time? And then he has spent the past year applying what they've learned to different races, to capes, and they are going to put out some exciting candidates. I know next year they're doing a lot of candidate recruitment right now. And in 2022 and in 2020, we had a lot of seats go uncontested, and that's not going to be the way it is anymore. They are going. Vortex is a wonderful organization that Dr. Jones is currently involved with, and their plan is to field a candidate in every one of our 4 districts next cycle and to make them competitive. And even if you think that those, I'll put my little pundit cap on for a second, even if you think those elections are not winnable, when you contest those elections, you are spreading the Arkansas Republican Party's resources. You're making it easier for down ballot candidates. You're making it easier for like minded independent candidates. You're making it easier for city council candidates. And if we want to grow the party, it grows from the ground up. We need those city councilors and those school board seats and those JOPs. Those are the seats we've got to take over if we want to flip the legislature and we want to flip that governor's mansion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have been really passionate about that as well, finding
Oh, yeah.
candidates. And I know that just to backtrack just a little bit, um, you were working with Capes. You still are working with Capes
Yes.
as the Capes director of Crawford County. Um, what you all did statewide, countywide, absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with that?
Oh, I'd be happy to because I got the Capes was one of the most amazing things I ever had the privilege to do in my political career. The best men and women I have met in politics, I swear half of them were in Capes. And I'll even we could not. Crawford County did amazing in during Capes. Every 50 counties needed to put up 3%. Crawford County ended up doing 4.41, which is about 780 signatures that we collected in half the time, which I found to be amazing. I was over the moon about it. And we could not have done that if it weren't for people like Sheila Bell. She's the head of the Crawford County Democratic Party. Her and Monica McComber and Mandy Steele and Sharon Herrick, Dennis Taft, and Jim Warnock. These are organizers who have been on the ground and working this community through the dark ages. And now that we're starting to see they have an organization like Capes come in, they were ready to go. They were fired up. There was a point I feel like we had 20 active volunteers in Crawford County, which might not sound like a lot to some people, but to have a volunteer who is on call and you can get them, I need you to be at this library in 2 days and I need you collecting signatures there. Getting somebody that dedicated of a volunteer, that's very rare that you actually lock somebody into that position while you're running a campaign like this. So to have about 20 people that half of them were educators or former educators, there were many teachers that canvassed for us, and they did it out in 100-degree plus heat. They sweat their tails off getting it, and they did it with a smile on their face the entire time. I've watched them tangle with people who said this is to get rid of CRT in the classroom and to make sure to and men and girls sports, and they made it about every other thing than what the Learns Act was actually about. And I watched these guys get signatures off of those people. I mean, they're good. They are good polls, and they are the reason Crawford County was as successful as it was. The other reason I would say Crawford County was as successful as it was is because Learns is going to hit us hard. Mulberry and Mountainburg are very small schools, and they already struggle a bit with their funding. Mulberry had to merge with Pleasant View just about a decade ago when they were in a bit of a precarious situation. And they are the first schools that stand to be shuttered and kids move to private schools under this Learns Act. And our communities certainly do not support that.
No.
So it resonated. It was very clear that Crawford County understood what this was going to mean for them, and they showed up. And seeing them show up gave me more hope for the future of our state than I'd had in a long time. It I don't know when we'll get there, but Capes left me with the feeling knowing that we're gonna get there.
You said it was 900 and some odd short
Yes, about
of
a
what was
minute.
needed. but it was a success. I think, and
A
so
hundred
many
percent.
people
100%.
use.
When you're going into these communities and you're building a political machine that did not exist there prior, and you've made it so accessible that the Democratic Party and other activists can use what you've built after the referendum is over to grow the party and to make real change in the state, that's not a loss at all. That's a big fat win as far as I'm concerned. And I'm already seeing the effects of how Capes has left us better organized as we're plowing straight into the library fight here in Crawford County, more organized, better prepared because of how Capes sorted us out. So it has really had a beautiful trickle down effect that I think is going to help all the candidates, all the parties, and it really is probably the spark that is going to get our state back on the right track.
So you are the Young Democrats of Arkansas labor chairman for districts 3 and 4.
Yes.
Can you tell us what has that been like? What hopes do you have regarding a labor movement here in Arkansas?
Oh, that's a fun one. Well, YDAR is an amazing organization, and they do incredible work. Many people don't know our Young Democrats actually are one of the most active chapters across the country. And I encourage anyone, you need to get involved in your local Young Democrats chapter because if you want to make some change and you want to affect policy, because the thing I hear the most from young people is they feel like they don't have a seat at the table. Young Democrats has a seat at the table, and they have a big one. They are officially chartered by the Arkansas Democratic Party, and it's a national organization. So I forget exactly how it works down to the numbers, but part of the party platform is written by the Young Democrats and then approved by the Young Democrats. So it gives you real ability to make change in the state, to go and make those meetings and actually affect what our party's state constitution looks like. But in terms of the labor side of things, in districts 3 and 4, uh, we've been having Learns was a big one for us because Learns was just as much a labor issue as it was education. That's something a lot of people didn't touch on. But a lot of teachers, especially gay teachers, were in trouble of losing their jobs over this. History